God's chosen ones. When two anointed souls unite, hell will panic and heaven will roar. You've always felt it, haven't you? That someone somewhere was being prepared, just like you. Not for romance, not for rescue, but for rain, the same fire, the same tears, the same oil. And now, heaven is bringing you face to face, because when two anointed souls finally collide under divine timing, the atmosphere shifts, and hell, it panics. If your spirit just whispered, "This is the moment I've been waiting for." You've carried this mantle for so long, you almost forgot it was never meant to be carried alone. You didn't ask to be different. You didn't beg to be set apart. But still, God marked you, quietly, painfully, completely. And while others walked hand in hand into love stories and friendships, you walked alone. Not because you weren't worthy of connection, but because your oil required protection. Why does it always end in silence? Why do they see my fire as too much? Why does my spirit feel full, but my hands stay empty? Because chosen ones aren't rushed into alignment. They are refined. That ache in your chest, that restlessness in your spirit, it's not loneliness. It's the echo of a promise that's finally coming near. You're not crazy. You're not forgotten. You're close. And God is not sending you just anyone. He's sending someone who's wrestled angels too, who knows what warfare smells like at midnight, who's lost everything and still worships. You won't have to shrink. You won't have to explain your tears. You won't have to hide your hunger for more, because when it happens, when your oil meets someone carrying matching fire, your soul will recognize them before your mind can understand. This is the one I was being prepared for. This is the voice that will make my vision exhale.
This is not a partner.
This is a confirmation. So if your heart just skipped, if something in you whispered finally, if your warfare has been intensifying lately, this is not a coincidence. This is divine alignment. And if you're watching this, it's not by accident. Type 777 in the comments if your spirit just said, "I accept the assignment." Because the world is about to feel what heaven already confirmed. Part 1. The mantle you carried alone. You didn't choose this mantle. It landed on you like a storm you couldn't outrun. From the outside, people saw strength, doors opening, prayers answered, spiritual gifts. But what they didn't see was the crushing, the nights you folded into yourself, crying into pillows soaked in surrender. God, why me? Why this kind of weight? Why the silence after I said yes? They saw favor, but they never saw the fire. Because chosen ones don't carry crowns first, they carry crosses. You've walked into rooms and felt the warfare before a single word was spoken. You've smiled while discerning betrayal. You've sat in church surrounded by people and still felt completely unseen. You've kept your visions locked inside journal pages because every time you tried to share them, you were told, "That's too much. Just be normal." But you were never made to be normal. You were made to carry something sacred. But sacred doesn't always feel safe. There were days your obedience felt like exile, like Noah building an ark in silence. No thunderclouds, no applause, just instructions. And still, you built, you wept, you obeyed. Because your faith wasn't for show, it was survival. The people who once celebrated you slowly stepped back. Not because you failed, but because your fire started convicting their comfort. They couldn't handle the oil you carried. So you dimmed, you shrank. You softened your voice so you wouldn't scare them. But it didn't work because the anointing still leaked through. You weren't abandoned. You were being set apart. Know that the Lord has set apart his faithful servant for himself. You weren't rejected. You were redirectioned. Because God couldn't allow anyone near your mantle. Who would mishandle what cost you everything? You've had dreams too heavy to say out loud. Revelations too deep for surface-level friendships. You've battled demonic resistance before your feet even hit the floor. And yet, you still get up because something in your spirit knows, I wasn't called to be understood. I was called to be anointed. You've walked through deserts with no map, only the whispered instructions of the Spirit. You've obeyed when there was no confirmation. You've loved when your heart was still healing. You've served when your soul was bleeding. And heaven recorded it all. Not one act of obedience was wasted. Not one lonely night went unseen. Not one tear fell outside of God's reach. You didn't walk alone. You walked ahead. Because pioneers are always misunderstood by the people still building tents in places God asked them to leave. But you kept moving like Joseph in Genesis 37. You were given dreams early, and instead of applause, you got betrayal. The coat wasn't just favor, it was targeting, and now you finally understand. You were never being punished, you were being processed. You were being built in silence, like David in the fields, practicing with lions and bears, while nobody was watching. He chose David. From tending the sheep he brought him, to shepherd his people with integrity of heart. That's what God's been doing with you. He's been carving integrity in private, so your public purpose wouldn't crush you. And I know. You've started to ask yourself, will I always carry this alone? Will anyone ever see the weight I'm carrying? Will I always have to pretend I'm not tired? No, that season is shifting because there is someone coming, someone who knows what the wilderness smells like, someone who's been through the same crushing but came out carrying oil. They won't flinch when the warfare hits. They'll recognize the mantle before you even speak because they were forged in the same fire. And when you meet them, your spirit won't panic. It will exhale. If this were you, if someone finally carried the same fire, would you recognize them, or would your past pain keep you guarded? Type 777 in the comments if your soul whispered, I'm ready to share this mantle. Part 2. When two mantles collide. For years, you've walked with fire in your chest and silence on your lips. You've been the strong one, the praying one, the discerning one in a room full of noise. You've waited for someone to look at you and not just see your smile, but feel the weight of your calling. And now, that moment is near, because heaven doesn't just prepare people, it prepares collisions. You're not about to stumble into love. You're about to walk into divine recognition. This is not a crush. This is not compatibility. This is prophecy in motion. When two anointed souls collide, the spiritual realm responds, like when Mary greeted Elizabeth, and the baby leapt in her womb. Luke 1:41. That wasn't emotion. That was purpose recognizing purpose. You won't need a sign. You'll be the sign. Your eyes will lock. Your spirits will leap. And suddenly, it'll all make sense. The dreams, the loneliness, the crushing, the calling. It was never just about becoming ready. It was about becoming recognizable. How will I know it's them? Not by looks, not by titles, not by surface. You'll know because your spirit will breathe again. Your discernment won't panic. It'll rest. You'll feel it before you understand it. A stillness, a trembling, a holy knowing. This is who I was prepared for. They won't compete with your calling. They'll complement it. They won't misunderstand your fire. They'll match it. Where others saw you as too intense, they'll see you as familiar. Where others asked you to shrink, they'll invite you to expand because they've walked through fire too. They've cried in bathrooms between breakthroughs. They've obeyed when no one clapped. They've buried promises and waited for resurrection. And like you, they've been wondering, is there anyone else like me? The answer is yes. Two are better than one, for if one falls, the other can lift them. Ecclesiastes 9:10. But this isn't just about support. This is about synergy. When one speaks, the other confirms. When one dreams, the other strategizes. When one prays, the other warfares. This is not cute. It's kingdom. This is oil meeting oil. And the weight of that connection will awaken everything you thought had died. The same prayers you whispered through tears, they prayed too, just in a different room, a different city, a different wilderness, but heaven heard both of you. And heaven is now ready to bring the assignments together. Because this isn't just about two people healing each other. This is about two purposes becoming one sound. Like Paul and Silas singing in prison. Like Moses and Aaron confronting Pharaoh. Like Ruth and Naomi walking toward harvest. This is legacy. This is kingdom. This is impact. When you meet them, you won't have to explain your fire. You won't have to water down your revelation. You won't have to pretend to be less anointed to be loved. They'll know. They'll see. They'll feel the weight you carry and not flinch. Because they were carved to carry it too. When your spirit finally meets someone carrying matching fire, will you be ready to receive them, or will fear still be guarding the door? Type 444 in the comments if your soul whispered, "I'm ready to be recognized." Part 3. This connection cannot be forced. You gave your heart too early, not because you were desperate, but because you were ready. You saw glimpses of something sacred in broken people, and you said, maybe I'm supposed to love them into their calling. So you poured, you served, you waited, you believed. But every time, they left you emptier than they found you. Why? Because your love was divine, but they were never assigned. Some of the people you trusted with your heart were only meant to pass through, not plant roots. You mistook connection for covenant. You confused potential for alignment. But hear me, the right person won't need convincing. You won't have to dim your light just to make them feel comfortable. The right one will carry their own flame. Jesus said in Matthew 7:6, "Do not throw your pearls to pigs, lest they trample them, and then turn and tear you." You thought you were being kind. You were being obedient. You were being available. But in truth, you were giving what was holy to hearts that didn't have the capacity to carry it. You weren't rejected because you were too much. You were rejected because your oil was too real. And real anointing exposes false altars. You tried to explain your fire to people who only knew sparks. You tried to bring prophecy into conversations meant for surface. You were trying to plant deep love in soil that was never meant to grow you. And every time it didn't work, you questioned yourself instead of the timing. But now you know. This connection can't be forced. Not through effort, not through striving, not even through prayer. If it's not what God is aligning, the most sacred alignments don't come from work. They come from waiting. They happen when the Spirit whispers, now, like Philip in Acts 8. The Spirit didn't say, make a plan. It said, go. There's a chariot waiting, a destiny waiting, and he obeyed, and a nation was changed through one conversation. Let go of the need to manufacture something sacred. You don't need to prove your readiness. You don't need to post more. Pray harder. Search wider. You just need to surrender deeper. God is not looking for performers. He's looking for those who wait in the hidden place, with hearts open, but hands off. Because divine collisions happen at the intersection of heaven's timing and your obedience. You don't have to find them. They're being brought to you. You won't have to wonder if it's real. You won't have to ask a dozen friends for confirmation. You won't need signs and fleeces and repeated dreams. Because when it's God's doing, your spirit will know before your mind can even catch up. This time, you won't be chasing chemistry. You'll be walking in covenant. What would shift in your life if you stopped trying to force the connection and simply prepared for it? Type, I'm done striving. I'm ready for heaven's alignment in the comments if your soul finally exhaled. Part 4. Why you had to wait. There were nights you whispered, God, what did I do wrong? Nights you stared at the ceiling in silence, while everyone else seemed to be moving forward, falling in love, finding alignment, holding hands and calling it purpose. But you were still alone, still obedient, still waiting. You gave God your yes, and He gave you more time. Why the delay? Why does it feel like everyone else gets there first? Why does my heart feel ready, but untouched? Because, chosen one, you weren't being punished. You were being preserved. There were relationships that looked like answers, but were actually detours. There were doors you begged God to open that would have stolen your calling the moment you stepped through. Some of your loneliest seasons were actually divine shielding. Psalm 121:7. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. Even when you thought He was ignoring you, He was protecting you from what your eyes couldn't see. Had God let the wrong person come too soon, they would have seen your oil as competition, not covenant. They would have tried to love you in the flesh, while waging war against your spirit, and your assignment would have been diluted by distraction dressed up as destiny. You cried over people God never sent. You mourned the end of relationships that were never supposed to begin. You called it heartbreak. Heaven called it redirection. Every almost was actually an answer. Every no was a yes in disguise, because the connection you're waiting for is not just meant to heal you. It's meant to activate something in you. And for that to happen, you had to be refined. You stayed pure when it would have been easier to settle. You held your integrity, while others clapped for shortcuts. You chose calling over comfort, and heaven watched. Jeremiah 18, the potter didn't rush the clay. He pressed, he shaped, he broke it down and began again. Not because it was unworthy, but because it was too valuable to crack under pressure. You had to become the version of yourself that wouldn't settle for proximity over purpose. Someone who doesn't just recognize divine connection, but can steward it. Now, after all the pruning, after all the stretching, after all the no's that left you breathless, the time is near, not just for connection, but for confirmation. When you meet them, you won't need to rehearse who you are. You won't need to hide your oil, your warfare, your fire, because they'll already carry it too. There will be no striving, no proving, no pretending. Your soul will exhale and say, "This is why I had to wait. This is why it never worked before. This is what I was being preserved for." This isn't a chapter about delay. It's about divine choreography. God wasn't late. He was protecting the roots, so the fruit wouldn't be crushed when it came. And when it comes, you'll realize the wait wasn't the hardest part. The wait was the holiest part. If you knew the delay was saving you from spiritual collapse, would you still call it a setback? Type, "The wait was protection" in the comments. If you finally understand that silence was actually strategy. Part 5. When the two finally meet, you won't even see it coming. Not at first. It won't be wrapped in glitter. It won't scream destiny. It might look ordinary. A simple conversation, a familiar gaze, an unexpected invitation. But your spirit, it will leap before your mind understands. This is different. I don't have to explain who I am here. I don't feel drained. I feel home. Because this isn't coincidence. It's collision. Heaven's orchestration. Prophecy fulfilled. Oil meeting oil. They won't interrupt your mission. They'll accelerate it. They won't dim your discernment. They'll deepen it. They won't challenge your hunger for God. They'll match it. And suddenly, everything that once felt heavy will start to make sense. So that's why I cried those tears. That's why the doors didn't open. That's why the wait had to last this long. Because the connection God sends won't complete you. It will confirm you. You won't be meeting a person. You'll be meeting a sound your spirit has heard in dreams, but never found in the flesh. You'll feel the weight of their silence and know they've been through fire too. You'll catch their gaze and feel decades of wilderness in one glance, and yet you'll smile because nothing is missing. What you carried in secret, they carry in spirit, like Moses and Aaron, one with the staff, one with the voice, like Paul and Barnabas, both called, both sent, both equipped. This is not romance. This is rain. This is not attraction. This is activation. When the two of you align, you won't just change your own lives. You'll shift atmospheres. One can chase 1,000, 10,000. Hell will panic because what God birthed in two different caves is about to stand side by side on the battlefield. And when your prayers collide, chains will break, doors will open, territories will shift, not just for you, but for generations. There will be moments when you look across the room and wonder, how did we survive to find each other? And heaven will whisper, because I kept you hidden until the other was whole. You'll see the old scars in each other's eyes and feel no shame, just recognition, just reverence, just release. This isn't just a union, it's a confirmation, a divine witness that God saw your tears, honored your obedience, and kept his promise. You didn't miss it. You didn't ruin it. You didn't disqualify yourself. He was just aligning you for something your soul couldn't carry alone. When the one carrying the same fire steps into your life, will you still be protecting yourself, or will you finally be ready to be seen? If this is your confirmation, type, "It's happening. I'm ready to be recognized." Let heaven take note of your surrender. Whisper this with me. I didn't miss it. I was made for it. All the nights you laid in silence, wondering if God forgot your prayers. All the moments you stayed loyal, while others gave up and walked away. All the seeds you sowed in hiddenness. The tears you cried when nobody saw. Heaven did. Heaven saw it. Heaven recorded it. And heaven remembered. You didn't wait in vain. You were being aligned. This wasn't just a video. It was a confirmation of who you are, of what's coming, and of who is being prepared to walk beside you. Two are better than one. Not for romance, for rain. This is not the end of your loneliness. It's the beginning of your legacy. You weren't created to be admired. You were crafted to be aligned. Start living like the divine alignment is already in motion. Speak with authority. Walk with integrity. Love like someone who's been sent. Let your decisions reflect your destiny. Let your posture mirror the promise. Let your presence prepare the path. Because when it happens, and it will, you won't need a neon sign. You'll need a surrendered heart. If your soul whispered this was for me at any point, comment below. I'm aligned. I'm ready. Let heaven see your agreement. Let your future hear your yes. And if you're still unsure, still afraid, still healing, that's okay. You don't have to be perfect, and just willing, because the story is already written and your name is already on the next page. Stay faithful, stay ready, and stay soft, because when two anointed souls unite under heaven's timing, the world will feel it. Hell will panic, and heaven will record it. You were chosen, you are aligned, and you are no longer alone.